I'm very happy to be talking to Alyssa Monks today in Brooklyn. Alyssa is an American artist. She's highly talented, highly respected, and highly successful. She's had numerous solo shows, and her work is in collections around the world. She also teaches and lectures at universities and institutions throughout America, and she's also an adjunct professor at the New York Academy of Art. So, hello, Alyssa. It's very nice to be talking to you.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, it's great. And you're in Williamsburg, is in Brooklyn. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, I'm in Williamsburg right now, right near the Williamsburg Bridge.
Oh, okay. Now, the only way I know that Williamsburg is from that reality TV show, Two Broke Girls.
Yeah, I watched a couple episodes of that. Yeah, they're always filming something around here, so I don't watch too much TV. But I guess if someone tells me my neighborhood is on a show, maybe I'll watch it for a minute.
Right. Okay, well, this is a question I seem to be asking a lot of the artists who come on the podcast. So, why do you think art exists?
That's a great question. I really think art is a fundamental need. I think it's part of our survival. It's a means of communication that goes beyond time and space and language and even like social context. So, we can look at a piece of art from centuries ago, even millennia ago, and still, still it will resonate, even if we have nothing in common with the artist. So I think that art serves a really important function if it's tapping into our deep, deep human nature. It can be very powerful to really transcend space and time.
Right. So, it's a form of communication that's more than words and more than, that's why we still need it, you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's communication that we have to use for everyday means. I'm coming over. I'll be there in 5 minutes, whatever, and all of that is very useful. But the kind of communication I'm talking about is more of a sense of understanding that we as humans belong to this earth and that we as humans experience the same feelings as other humans. So to express a deep, deep emotional state or a certain struggle or a certain joy, and have it be recognized by another human, I think is not only deeply comforting, but it's also helpful. It's also a way to guide others through the emotional turmoil it means to be a human.
Right, yeah.
So, I think there's a bit of comfort and there's a bit of function in it.
Right.
And not only that, but for the artist himself or herself, the process can be one of deep meditation where you can go beyond your own existence in a way, your own egoic presence, and go into a deeper place where you really do feel connected to, uh, you know, other people and your environment on a deeper level than just, I've got the right clothes and I live in the right kind of house and I'm in the right neighborhood. So I think I think it goes beyond our concept of ourselves, and that's not a thing we have very accessible in our society a lot. Like we tend to be a little bit lost in thought and kind of hung up on our own, I don't know, our own will and our own ideas of how things should be. And I think it's a problem that we tend to get disconnected, from the
Yeah.
deeper existence. And art can be a place to go back and get access to that pretty regularly. So I
Both
think it's
viewing it and the process of making it.
yes, absolutely. And even just talking about it like we are now.
I read in a few different places that you're very interested in this moment when the paint arrives at just the right place, and then suddenly the magic happens and it comes to life, and we're no longer see the paint, but we see an eye or an ear or a drop of water.
Mhm.
So from your years of working with that process at close quarters, have you started to notice the other side of it, like in reality, where you start to see through like the cracks in reality, and you start to see the paint, if you like, that makes up reality?
Oh, that's so exciting to think about. You've given me some really good nighttime falling asleep thoughts. That's delicious. Absolutely. I used to do that all the time when I was in grad school. I would walk around and look at the world as though it was made of paint, and I would try to mix colors for everything I saw in my head and imagine how I would paint, you know, I don't know, a cityscape from the exact vantage point in that exact atmosphere and that exact time of day. And um, I used to do that a lot, and I don't do that as much now. I think I don't look at the real world uh, in that way anymore because I'm kind of making stuff up now. Like I'm kind of creating a different world. So what I end up doing is layering two different scenarios on top of each other and then trying to imagine that made of paint.
Right.
So yeah, so I don't look at like a person's face and go, "Oh, you're made of paint," and I can see the strokes. I take that person and imagine them, and then I put trees over them and leaves and flowers, and then
Yeah.
try to imagine that made of paint, and it gets me pretty happy and excited too. But you just start talking about paint with me, and I get excited. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
When
I had a dream one night that I had all these paintings I didn't know about that I had made, and I forgot. And I went to this room, and all these paintings, and all of the paint was moving. It was magical. It was just like the imagery didn't matter at all, but the paint itself was animated. It was actually moving just on its own accord. And it was, I remember waking up and thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to get bored of this stuff. Just it's way too interesting.
That's lovely. When you're working on a painting, are you thinking about the viewer, or are you just painting for yourself?
I don't think I'm thinking of either the viewer or the or myself. Um, I mean, of course there are there are deadlines and there are reasons for these paintings. I have a show coming up in the spring, and so there is a piece of me that's concerned, about the final product. But after a few hours, and I'm really getting into the zone, I'm not thinking about the viewer anymore, and I'm not thinking about my own um, personal enjoyment. It's just happening. So I'm thinking more about the strangeness of this stuff, this paint, and like all of the weird things that it does, and um, you know, I don't know. I really get quite childlike, I think, um, in my curiosity when I'm painting. So I try to slow down and really get to that place as quickly as possible because it is a place of pure enjoyment, where you just lose yourself in the material.
Yeah.
Not even the illusion and the image, because I mean, if you've seen my paintings in real life up close, it's just brushstroke after brushstroke and
Yeah.
passage, and there's nothing there until you step at least 5 feet away. So, so for me, I'm sitting there just kind of enjoying the physicality and the sensuality and the pressure. I mean, it's funny when I teach people to paint that they pick up the brush and they get the right color and they want to feel that sensation of the slippery paint under the brush against the hard surface of the panel, and then they keep doing it over and over and over again. And of course, if you do that, you kind of kill the color and the paint, and it's not good, but it's the first instinct because it feels so good.
Yeah.
So I try to just get to that place of enjoying touch of the paint to the surface, and just lingering with that, and not thinking about the final result. Like I kind of know, I know I'm going to get lost. I know I'm going to try to figure out my way. I know it's going to be a roller coaster. All of that happens every time. So um, I just kind of let that happen. But the for me, the best place to actually work from is a place of focusing on the paint itself rather than, is this for something? Is it for me? Is it for the viewer? Is it, what is it in its final state? To me, that's
Yeah.
not as motivating. It's kind of the, I don't know, the unfortunate result. Like it'd be better if the painting could just disappear afterwards, I guess, because it'd
Really?
be better. Yeah, and I know there are artists who do that, and I wish I could afford to do that, but I can't. So I have to I have to keep the painting and sell it and make a living so I could make another painting. But
When you say
the
disappear now, do you mean like hidden in an attic or burned?
yeah, just not in existence. Like if the understanding was as soon as you finish it, it would just vanish. So there'd be no attachment to the final product. You wouldn't be able to
Right,
take a
yeah.
picture of it. You wouldn't be able to show it to anyone or have it be graded or criticized or even loved. You
Yeah, yeah.
know, I think that the outcome would be better because the process would be liberated and it would be amazing to see what would happen.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that reminds me of that guy who does those designs on the sand. Have you seen him?
Yes, yeah, yeah. There's a few artists who do this. They purposefully make art that disappears. I mean, if you look at street artists, they do it all the time, and
Yeah.
it's risky and wonderful. And like I said, I wish I could do that. But even saying that, there's another part of my work that to me has become really, really, really important, and it has been the connection and the receiving of the work, and it's different than what I thought it would be. Like it's first of all, I never cared about that when I started, and to me, it was just I just have to do this. I'm compelled to, and I don't care if anyone likes it or doesn't like it. Um, yeah, I was that kind of kid. Um, and then over the years, it became my identity, and I started to see some success, luckily and thankfully. And I went about my world for a while, making paintings and showing them, and then once my mother got sick, I realized that there was more to this than just making paintings for the sake of making paintings. And it came to me in kind of a rush of maybe 4 or 5 people in a row who looked at the paintings and felt their own experience with their own dying parent or their own, loved one that they lost.
Yeah.
And their response was so powerful that I realized that this is beyond what I thought it was about. And this isn't mine at all, so it's definitely not for me. And it's not really for them either. It's just this thing we do. It's like a hug, it's I don't know, it's a way to hold our pain or hold our experience and relate it and be seen. And um, I don't know. There's something else. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I know it's there. And so when I make work now, my barometer is different than it used to be. It's not, oh, it's sold, or oh, this critic liked it, or oh, this gallery likes it, or whatever the old ways of judging a painting are. If somebody looks at it and they're moved, they even get tears in their eyes, or they see themselves, then I feel like I've tapped into something that is more mysterious and more exciting to paint for than just, I don't know, accolades or pleasure. I
Yeah.
don't.
And has that realization influenced the way you paint now? Like, are you conscious of that? Like, are you trying to create space in your paintings for the viewer to own them? Is that something? Is
Absolutely.
it something you
Yeah.
can? Is that something that you
Yes.
can make happen?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm trying. And I've I've realized that tapping into my own vulnerability is the doorway into that other world. So, um, I think for a long time I was thinking I was being a little coy, or there was some kind of mystery to the work I was doing. It wasn't obvious, and you'd have to decode it. And I look back and I'm like, oh my God, no, this is not that hard to understand, and it's all really right there. So why am I even trying to, um, you know, I don't know, hide myself in any way? And so I made a series of portraits in the last couple of years without any filter, without any glass or steam or water
Yeah,
droplets or anything. And my goal in this project was to capture a person at their most uh, awake and present, and not necessarily vulnerable, because that word kind of stirs up a lot of discomfort for
yeah,
people. But the truth is that, when we are disarmed and we're truly present and curious of where we are, and listening and paying attention, we have our guard down. We're not protecting ourselves. We're not strategizing. We're really present, awake, focused, listening.
yeah. It sounds like
And
being open more than vulnerable.
yeah, yeah. Yes, exactly. Open. So I did a series of these portraits trying to get at that moment. And that was one exercise. And then the other piece was when I do compose an image now, I am looking for that vulnerability, where there is like you can show the weakness. It's not overt, and it's not like heavy-handed or overly dramatized, but you can show the need. You can show the humility, the humble qualities, the fear a little bit, like these pieces of our psyche that are present in us that we strive to cover up and control and fix and deny. And they're there though, and they can just be in like a little split second of a moment, and
Yeah,
um, and it doesn't have to be overbearing. It's just human. It's just human. It's just like an animal would respond to a dangerous situation, with like a little bit of like what was that noise?
yeah,
uh, we're supposed to be that way. We're supposed to have this full range of feelings. And so I kind of was thinking, what if I just let it go and just let all of that show? And if I love somebody, let it show through in the work.
yeah,
If I miss somebody, let it show through how much I miss them, and see what the response is. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I was just curious to see what would happen. And so far so good. I mean, people seem to understand what the work is about, and and I'm sure it's not for everybody, but that's not a problem for me. I don't mind
and are
that.
people connecting to it the way you'd hope they would?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's beautiful. It's a real honor for me when someone comes and looks at my work and shares a piece of their humanness with me, their humility, their um, fear or love or feeling of longing. I mean, and they don't have to tell me a whole story, but they do it with their body. They do it
Yeah,
with their gaze and their facial expression. And I could see it, and it's an honor. It's absolutely an honor and a privilege to be witness to somebody else's vulnerability. So yeah, I can really sense it, and it's deeply satisfying because it makes me feel less alone, and it makes makes them feel less alone. So
yeah. And
it's quite beautiful.
sorry, go ahead.
I just think it's kind of beautiful. That's all.
Yeah. Has it made painting more stressful for you? Like, do you feel there's more jeopardy involved? Like you're more exposed?
No, actually. I think I felt more self-conscious before,
Oh, okay.
which is, I guess, counterintuitive, but I think there's a lot of power in the vulnerability. Um,
Yeah.
when you're sure of something, you feel powerful, and I feel pretty sure of this. I've
Yeah.
done some experiments even in my personal life and in my relationships, and it always works when you put your guard down and you show your true nature in a kind way, of course, in a receptive way, and you get really present to somebody else. It always works. That
Yeah.
always works. So why wouldn't it work in art? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that when you said, I might get it wrong, but we'll see. But it doesn't sound like the sort of thing you can get wrong because it's really between you and you. So if you're happy, then it's right.
Yeah, I guess so. And I know I won't be happy for long. That's not in my nature. So
No, I
I'll
mean,
have to
happy with
push
with
another
what you're
button.
doing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, that's great. So who are your like creative heroes?
Well, the first person that comes to mind is my mother because she lived in this very creative way, and she was really an inspiration and applying creativity to everything. So I have been influenced both my parents a lot. My father tends to be a lot more systematic and efficient and organized, and that kind of personality,
Hmm.
more like product oriented and goal oriented, I should say. And my mom was more of a experimental cook, and she liked to try different things. She never followed a recipe, and um, she was always inventing different things, and she could never do the same thing twice. And it was always, well, this is just a test, this is no big deal. Just try this out.
Yeah,
And she did that with just about everything she did. And I didn't realize how much that had gotten into my process and how important that was to my process. Because for me, and I think for most people, efficiency makes sense. Goal oriented behavior makes a lot of sense. If you want to accomplish something, you've got to get organized and have a plan.
mm,
And um, and that took me very far, but there was boredom in it. There was something else that my I don't know, my mind was seeking, and that was experimenting and exploring and inventing. And in order to do that, you really have to let go of your process and let go of your goal and let go of expectations and say, well, this is just a test and it doesn't matter. This is an
yeah,
experiment.
yeah,
And so her whole, I don't know, way of doing things that way was really important for me. And then, I've seen that and seeked that out in my relationships and in my mentors. So I've become very attracted to other artists who have made big changes in their work over the years and who continue to outdo themselves or pick up new mediums or try different ways or techniques.
yeah.
So there's a lot of artists like that. I don't know if you want me to list them all for you that I find exciting, but anyone who's been brave. So I think of Vincent Desiderio and Jenny Saville and Natalie Frank, who, I mean, she painted abstractly all of a sudden for a year, threw all of those away, and then combined realism and abstraction in a way that no one's ever done before.
Right.
Um, and so I think there's big power in risk taking. So that's what I've been very drawn to, you know.
Okay. Are all your creative heroes artists? Apart
No,
from your
no,
mother, was your mother
definitely
an
not.
artist?
She was a pottery maker, and
Oh,
she
okay.
and she was a cook, and she was a jewelry maker, and she sewed a lot of our clothes growing up, and She just made tons of things. So to not call her an artist would be to completely change the definition of the word.
Yeah, yeah,
But did she have a gallery and loads of fame? No, she didn't. She didn't have that kind of life. She raised 8 kids, very successful and very creatively.
yeah,
I definitely consider her an artist.
yeah,
Um, but going forward to even describe more about creative heroes, I wouldn't even say I can look at one person's work and just be like, oh, everything they do is amazing.
yeah,
I don't I don't feel that way. I feel connected to certain paintings or certain films or certain songs
yeah,
or poems or something like that. And even more specifically, certain moments within those
yeah,
works of art, I find really compelling, but maybe not the whole thing. And I kind of enjoy distilling it down to like the kind of that specific moment and why does that moment work so well, and what is it about the context that elevates that moment to the sublime and the execution. But it has nothing to do with the person, and it has nothing to do with their whole timeline even. It's that specific moment in the work where there's some kind of transcendence that I can't get to the bottom of. It's totally unpredictable. So that's the kind of thing that really excites me.
yeah. Well, it's kind of like what you were saying earlier on about your own work. There's that intangible quality that you hope for, but can't really, make happen. It just happens or it doesn't, where
Right.
somebody gets it
Yeah.
or connects with it or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
So, what's the biggest challenge that you're grappling with as an artist at the moment?
Huh. Time is a big problem lately. That's such a boring thing to talk about. Nobody has enough time.
Sounds like you need to talk to your dad about that one. The
Yeah.
time management.
Right, right. No, it's just, it's a weird conundrum because the better you do, the less time the world gives you to do what they want you to do or what they like that you've done. So, and I didn't ever consider this this problem. Like I used to just love being alone and painting, and I thought that's the life I wanted, and that's what I was going to do.
It's a one of those ironies of life that the more successful you get doing the thing that you love doing, the less time you have to do the thing that you love.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess that's kind of how everybody experiences it. It's just something I didn't expect. I mean, I didn't expect to be successful anyway. So all of this is really bizarre to me. But it's
You
been
didn't expect to be successful.
no, I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even dare to dream that much about that because, first of all, that's not what the goal was anyway. The goal was to make the
Well,
best painting.
right, right.
Um, but and also it just wasn't likely. I just knew that it's not likely to be successful at this. So I didn't think it was going to happen. Someone asked me recently. They said, "Alyssa, what did you do? Did you ever feel like you were worried that this wouldn't work out?" And I thought for a second, and I was like, I thought for sure it wasn't going to work out. Are you kidding? It's like I planned on being someone's assistant or working as a waitress or a bartender or absolutely. What are you talking about?
Okay. Well, look, Alyssa, never go into motivational speaking. Okay, it's not your thing.
That's funny. No, but I actually do think that if you're focused on the making the work that's genuinely good,
Yeah,
then you redefine success. And so your success is based on whether or not you feel good about it.
yeah,
Because ultimately the other ideas of success are that you can't ever really get there. There's always going to be a higher sale, a bigger sale, or a better story, or a better gallery, or a better show. I mean, you can't ever really get to success, you know, and so, and I don't know, and it's also short-lived. I mean, the real success happens in the studio when you've done something you've never seen before. So to me, that answers your question of what my biggest struggle is really is, you know, every time I start a painting, I want it to be something I couldn't imagine, something very different from what I did in the last painting, and that's really hard to do. So, and to do it in a time constraint, but that's the struggle, is to keep learning new techniques, you know, or new ways of putting the paint down.
Right. Well, speaking of success and all that kind of thing, how do you feel about galleries and the art business model in general, and that, you know, are galleries on the way out, or are they just going to change, or?
Well, I can't speak to all galleries. I almost feel like if you put them all in the same assumption, and then it's really unfair to them, because there are some relationships I've had with galleries that are really wonderful. Like the relationship I have with Forum right now is wonderful. I'm very happy. And then there's other relationships I've had with galleries that I feel are not as healthy or not as productive, or you know, and then I can see my friends and some of their relationships with galleries, and it's very much like dating. It really is. And so when you ask me what are galleries going to go out of style or whatever, it's kind of like saying, so are men going extinct, or are they going to evolve? You know, it's I don't think I can answer that.
Well, you must have seen it change though a lot in the last, say, 10 years. The way the business side of it, you know.
Yeah, I remember the gallery I was with 10 years ago getting very upset that I had a website. And this was unthinkable, that an artist would have her own website. You know, the collectors can get to her directly now.
Right.
You know, we've come a long way from that. So I think the galleries and artists are changing in this interesting kind of dance where artists have more access to promoting themselves, as they should, and to really designing their own, I hate this word, but their own brand, and not relying on anyone else to do that for them, which I think is smart and empowering for the artist. And many artists can sell their work directly to collectors and clients and be very happy that way. And I think that that's really interesting too. You know, I think that galleries have to evolve too, and I think they have in many ways. And I don't really know much about the specifics on their end, because I don't work in a gallery, and I've never worked in a gallery.
Right.
So I don't know how different things are for them specifically. But I can only speak to my experience, which is also kind of limited. Granted, I've worked with probably, 30 galleries, but only intimately with a handful.
Right.
And so that's really a small number. And I think it works best when the gallery is working with fewer artists, and they can make their artists feel special and important, and really showcase their work and promote their career. And I don't know, I think the days of galleries having 50 artists on their roster doesn't really make sense anymore, you know. But it's, to me, the whole business end of it is probably the yuckiest part of the whole art career thing.
Why is that?
Well, it just gets so, I don't know, it gets depressing to talk about the business end of it for me, in terms of where the paintings end up in. Are they getting more valuable, and is it going to auction, and who's screwing who, and what's the, whole thing. And so I just feel so grateful that I have Forum, and that they're so wonderful, and they really have so much integrity, and that to me makes my job a lot easier. So I don't have to have the kind of conflict that a lot of artists have, I think, with their galleries.
Right. How long have you been with them?
We started working together in March, late February, early March. So I'll have my first show with them in the spring. And yeah, since then they've just been so helpful and so encouraging and positive, and they work with me. They don't try to dominate every conversation, which I don't know if that happens a lot with other galleries. It depends. It's also individual, and it's hard to sum it all up, with one sweeping statement. But I do think it's up to the artist to create the kind of relationship with their gallery that is sustainable and equal, where they don't lose their power, and where the gallery is respectful of the artist, and the artist is respectful of the gallery. So
yeah,
it's up to the artist. Really has to make sure that happens, I think.
yeah. And like you talking about it in terms of dating, like have you had quite a few bad dates with galleries?
With galleries?
Yeah.
No, not really. I think that let's see. There was only one gallery, I think, where I just didn't agree with their. I think they kind of came to me and told me what to paint, and I just said, I'm not going to do that. Like I'm not about that. And my understanding is that some galleries, not all, but some galleries, they just want to find artists who will make work that's easy to sell. So, and that makes sense. It's efficient. They want to get their job done. So work that's challenging is more difficult. So they could go to an artist and say, look, this work that you made back in 2005 is something we can sell. So can you paint more of those? And that's a decade ago. So, the artist has a choice to make. Do they want to go back and revisit a time where, they were painting that subject, or do they want to evolve and grow? And perhaps they can, regress to evolve. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when the intention is not to evolve, but just to sell, I think that can be very devaluing to the artist's career. And to the collectors who've already collected the work. I feel a responsibility that I have to keep growing and keep evolving and keep learning and developing my work. But, to go back and do something I was doing 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it doesn't seem like a smart thing.
Yeah.
Even if it does sell easily, I don't think it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah. How important is social media for you? Like, do you like to engage with the people who like your work, or?
I wish I could answer everybody. I really do. Again, feel really lucky and surprised that all of this has happened, and never expected it. But I can't really talk to every single person, so I do. As much as I can. I do try to answer every email that comes in. And then, with social media, I don't respond to all the comments. I just, hope there's a gratitude that's understood, but to answer everybody would be impossible. And,
yeah. But do you like that side of it? Do you like to see the kind of, there's an immediacy to social media that didn't exist before, where you can put something up that's in progress, or, and get feedback or response or that kind of thing?
I think it's fantastic, actually. Is it tedious, and does it take time, and is it frustrating sometimes? Like, absolutely. And there's definitely overkill of it. But as with anything on the business end of this whole thing, streamline it, figure out a fast way to do it, and get it over with and get back to work. But as far as the result, I think it's so awesome. And I don't think that museums and collectors are really looking at my Instagram account. But I know that students are, and kids who are just starting out painting, and other artists. And I think that that's an awesome conversation that's happening, and I wished I had that when I was younger too, to be able to have that much access to my I don't know, to more experienced painters that can show me work in progress. I think that that's a fantastic result of social media.
Yeah.
It just has to be, streamlined, and I think again that's up to the artist to figure out how to do it quickly and efficiently and get out, not I don't know, not be rude, but also not be obsessive with it. So
Yeah.
I like it. I like the gratification of a few comments here and there. Like it's encouraging. It can be a long day in the studio, and you go home and you don't know anymore what's good. So if somebody is saying, "Hey, beautiful," it does feel really good.
Yeah, I've seen a few artists have started to use Periscope and Meerkat. These two live
Oh my
streaming
God,
things.
no.
Yeah, it's
Someone did tell me about Periscope, I think, but I haven't tried it.
Periscope's the Twitter one. Yeah, it's the same again. It's basically you just put your phone up and let people watch you painting, and they just make little comments as you go along. It's actually quite kind of captivating. You almost feel like you're sitting there, in the background watching someone. I want to ask you about teaching. How long have you been teaching for?
I started in 2003.
And you enjoy it? Do you obviously enjoy it? You wouldn't do it if you didn't. What is it?
I really do. It was an unexpected thing for me. I didn't plan on it. I never saw myself as a teacher. And when I started, I still didn't see myself as a teacher. I was very reluctant. And then after my very first class, I kind of looked around at all the paintings, and I thought, gosh, I better start teaching. So I got to figure that one out. But teaching was a lesson for me in really how to articulate myself and how to talk about my own work and my own process, and to further deepen my own experience with anybody I talked to about painting, not just students. So it was a really valuable experience. And then also I figured out a way to make it somewhat lucrative, and then at some point I stopped altogether. After my mom passed away, I stopped for a year, I think about a year and a half, and I did workshops and things like that. But I started again. I do private lessons on Sundays in my studio, and I just feel like this is something that really does feed me. It's really good for me to do this. It's a good conversation. It's a good way to reinvigorate my own practice and my own attitude towards painting and my own curiosity about it. I had a student today who I was doing a little demonstration for him on his painting, and it was his very first time using oil paint. And as I'm doing this demonstration for him, I'm thinking of my first time painting.
Yeah.
And he's telling me, he's like, gosh, it's like you're verbalizing everything in my head. And I'm thinking, you're verbalizing everything that I wish was in my head. Because he's sitting there going, wow, oh my God, how did you do that? Oh, that happened so fast. Wait, what? And I'm thinking, God, I love that feeling of awe, and that's where I want to live. So being around the students gives me that touchstone back to a place of just pure enjoyment and curiosity without expectation so much. And then when they do have that expectation, I can coach them, and in a way I'm coaching myself too. So I get a lot out of it, not to mention the relationships I've formed with all my students. Some of them I've had for over a decade now.
Wow.
And yeah, it's hard not to start really liking somebody and maybe even loving them. You just feel very attached. So yeah, and to see relationships form in my studio is really magical. I tend to attract a kind of painter that's more sensitive and organic in their approach, and so they're like-minded people, and then they find each other too. So it's a really nice little.
It's more dating, isn't it?
No, this is more friendly than dating.
Oh, okay,
This
all
is
right.
like, this is easy, comfortable, just hanging out
Right.
kind of atmosphere. Yeah,
Um,
easy going.
I wanted to ask you about your time in Florence. Did you enjoy it?
Oh God, I loved it.
How long
When
were you
I was
there
in
for?
Florence, I was there for a semester in college, and prior to that semester, I studied there for 6 weeks
Right.
in different cities, and then I returned in 2009 and 2007 to Tuscany to teach a landscape class, and I love Italy. I mean, I feel almost like I'm more at home and relaxed when I'm in Italy than in New York. I mean,
Yeah.
especially the relaxed part. It really taps into my 12-year-old kid kind of free, happy, happy side of me.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
totally relate to that. Yeah, it's a lovely
yeah,
place.
it's a special place. I hope to go again soon. Let's see. I was actually offered to teach a workshop in Rome this next summer, so it's 2016.
Nice.
So we're just ironing out the details.
And you went to the proper university, Italian university there. Did they teach in English, or did you have to get by in Italian?
Um, looking back, I wish they did teach in Italian, but they taught in English. And it was actually the art program was run and designed by two artists from South Africa, and so they weren't even Italian,
Okay.
but they were absolutely fantastic. I mean, it was the experience moved me to tears on more than one occasion, and not like just joy tears. It was very intense and extremely valuable. And some of their techniques I still think of often and use, and have kind of reformulated into my own teaching techniques and my own practice. It was an extremely formative experience for me. Yeah.
And do you think if you were learning the same things in New York or out of that environment, because there's something about Florence with it's like the artists are sort of seeping out of the stones in the ground practically. Do you think it?
Yeah.
Did you get that feeling as well?
Yeah, I mean, and literally, there's amazing historic art just on the street.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just right there, out in the open, in the elements.
Yeah.
No, it's a magical place for an artist to be. I always knew I had to go there. I read Agony and the Ecstasy when I was about 11 years old.
Wow.
That novel by Irving Stone. Have you read that?
No, I know the story, but I haven't read it. It's pretty heavy for an 11-year-old.
It is so good, though. It is so beautiful, and I mean, I was just fixated, and I never really wanted to be a sculptor, but the way he fictionalized Michelangelo's story made me just starving for this artist experience, and starving to go to Florence. And I didn't realize it would be a possibility until college, and then it just all fell together really well. So I went into it with all this magic already in it for me. So it was, I was well primed for my Italian experience. Plus, my mom always said I had to go there. She always told me that. You're gonna have to go to Florence, and then she would say, "But I don't want you to go because you're never gonna come home." So I did come home. I think that while Florence has this kind of magical quality to it, New York City it has another kind of energy, but it has a lot of potential for that magic too. In New York City, you really are in the mainstream current art culture, and it's not just about the proximity to all the museums and galleries and the lectures that artists are giving and the amazing schools. I went to the New York Academy of Art, which was 10 times more influential to me than my experience in Florence.
Right.
I mean, at least 10 times. That school was incredible in preparing me for my career, and still is. I still am very close with them, and I serve on the board, and I mentor the students sometimes, and it's a family. You know, it really is a wonderful, growing, organic, beautiful situation of connection and inspiration. And the other piece of New York that's so important to me now is, I mean, if you're going to pay the rent here, you have to know why you're doing it. But it's the people. You know, when I go somewhere, I can be almost guaranteed that I'm going to meet somebody who has an amazing story and who has a specific kind of vision or some kind of, I don't know, something that I would not have experienced anywhere else. And it's the one thing that I'm so grateful about being here for is the people. There's a ton of people. But if you take the time to get to know even just one new person each month, you're going to completely change your landscape for a little while and get a refreshing, inspiring point of view and perspective.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's a really important part of making art, is the people that are around you.
New York has kind of got stronger, say, again in the last 10 years, in that whole, in the art. I mean, it's always been an art center, but I think, well, you would know, you're there, but it look from over here anyway, it looks like it's just gone from strength to strength. Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it's a lot easier, too, to find the kind of people who are like-minded and kindred spirits. So, I mean, like I said, going to the New York Academy and going through their program, I thought I would just kind of go and learn some skills and leave. But the relationships I formed through them and still maintain and still keep happening are these really inspiring moments that elevate me and my expectation of life and expectation of art. And I don't know, it's just exciting. So yeah, it's easier to find the people that you want to connect with, and they're ready for you. As soon as you're ready, they're ready. You know, there's no like, oh, I have to be self-conscious or something. You know what I mean? It's just, you want to talk? Sure, let's start right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of wonderful that way.
Yeah, I've been in New York a few times. I always liked it. There's something electric in the air in New York. And like I was in New York in the 80s when it was, it was a bit rougher, but it's still brilliant. It was still very energized.
Yeah, a lot of people think it was better then, but I don't know. I was only a kid, so. What did you think? Were you scared when you walked around New York City?
I was terrified. God, the first time I was there, because I saw it so much on films and television. I thought I was going to be shot as soon as I stepped out of the hotel. I was sure. And then every corner I turned was I had already seen. It was a very strange experience. But yeah, I was terrified. But then being a good Irishman, I went and got drunk, and then I wasn't afraid anymore. So.
Yeah, you could do that easily here. But you wouldn't have to feel scared anymore. It's not that kind of city anymore. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's ironically part of the thing that some people miss. Like people think it's too safe now.
Yeah, the edginess.
It's not gritty enough. And some people will argue that all the creativity is sucked out because it's so much more corporate or vanilla or whatever. But I think that's kind of lazy, to be honest. I think that you have to go out and find it if you want to find it. That's all. It's easy to say. It's easy to blame the city if you're uninspired.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should come back to New York.
Yeah, we plan to. We definitely plan to. It's on the list.
Good.
Okay, so I was going to ask you what advice you'd give to your students or to an aspiring artist, but in doing my homework on you, I came across this great thing that you'd written, and I'm going to put it on the website where the podcast is. Because I think it's probably the best bit of advice, condensed advice to anyone considering being an artist. So what I'll do is I'll read it, and then if there's something you want to, add or highlight, you can do that when I finish, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so here it is. Skills are very important, but nowhere near enough to make art. Definitely acquire the skills through whatever practice and education you choose, and embrace it with discipline, but have no attachments to success. Work as hard as you can. Don't ever compare yourself to others. Learn how to work on your work. The more you paint or sculpt or draw, the more you'll know what to do and the more you'll develop your voice. Stay true in your work. Don't try and make art about things you don't know about, care about, or understand. Make art that you care about because you believe it should exist. Know your place and be humble and grateful, always. It's a competitive world and most people will not succeed. That's the reality. It's not an easy road, and too many artists complain constantly about how it's not fair and it's not merit-based. These are excuses. Take ownership of your work. Never show anything that isn't completed, and don't try to describe your ideas in words to other people. Be a little bit brief and coy about them. You can never really convey anything visual in words anyway. And share your process and work with other artists you admire. Allow for real criticism. Don't take it personally. Just let it make you better. Read art magazines and learn about the art world. Know your history. Love art. Love your materials. Let your materials humble and surprise you. Don't try to control the process. Do have a plan. Plan, plan, plan. Then be open to surprises and twists. Be fascinated. Find a job that can sustain you and leave you a bit of time to make work, but doesn't require any creativity. I'd suggest not taking a job in the art world. I was an administrative assistant all over New York in different temp jobs to sustain myself. Don't wait till you have the perfect studio to make your best work. Make the best of your space and do whatever you have to make it work. It'll be decades before you find the perfect space, if ever. Ask questions, be kind, be respectful always, don't burn bridges, have a website, share your work, take the feedback with a grain of salt, read art books. What Painting Is by James Elkins, and Art and Fear is a great essay about being an artist. Be patient with the art world and impatient with yourself. Write your artist statement, mostly to clarify your intent for yourself. Very good. Anything you'd like
Thank you.
to add? Or
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about something I may have left out. But thank you so much for reading all that. That was really...
I think it's brilliant.
I just got schooled. Yeah, thank you. So I hear a lot of painters, especially graduate students, worried about finding their style. You know, like they hear that a gallery wants them to have a certain style, and that they're not going to find a gallery or sell paintings or have a career if they don't have a style or whatever. And so they go ahead and start to try to compose a style or construct some kind of brand out of themselves. And I think this is a bit of a mistake, you know, because first of all, they're falling for the gallery's request, you know, make my job easy. You know, of course, if you have a sexy style, then it makes their job easy, right?
yeah,
And that's not the artist's job to make the gallery's job easy. The artist's job is to make authentic work that really, you know, can sustain their life's work. So don't worry about coming up with a specific style or theme, you know. And I remember my teachers too saying this to me all the time, like, what's your theme? Explain what your theme is. And it's like, if you're under 35, you don't have to do that. Like, you just don't have to do that. You can't possibly have a theme, you know, like you don't know anything yet. Especially if you're 20, you know, it's just give yourself a chance to ask a lot of questions and try a lot of things out. And, the people who are really going to go far are going to be the ones who are the least attached to how things go and who ask the most questions, not literally with their voice, but have that sense of curiosity. And the more you uncover all of these different possibilities, you're going to figure out your style or your voice or your theme or whatever. It's already inside you. It's already there. It's just a matter of kind of chiseling away and honing your resources, and gaining the language. It's a whole language full of vocabulary and inflection and intonation and color, and that's something that only experience gets you. So, I think the most important thing that I had said in that piece is that you have to love what you're doing. You have to really fall in love with what you're doing. If you're frustrated with it or angry with it or feeling like it's not fair, you have to take a step back and figure out how to get back to a place of really enjoying it and loving it and being curious about it. It's very much like a relationship or a conversation. I love this metaphor of thinking of two 7-year-olds meeting on the playground one day. And one 7-year-old says to the other one, okay, you're going to be my best friend for the next 50 years, and you're going to like this music, and you're going to like this color, and you're going to compliment me, and you're going to laugh at my jokes, and it's going to be great. That doesn't happen. That's not how friendships are made, right? So what does happen is that the two kids show up day after day, and they like each other's shoes, and then they both figure out they like dolls, or they whatever it is. They keep showing up and asking questions and trying things and creating a connection slowly. Yeah. But there's no expectation on it. And the moment there's this pressure for it to be different than it is, it starts to die. It just starts to die.
Yeah.
So if an artist is that frustrated with their career or their work or something, they're just wanting it to be different. If the paint is frustrating you, it's because you're trying to make it do something it doesn't want to do. And you've got to realize that you're in a dance, you're in a waltz with this paint, and you're not the leader. You don't get to lead this dance. You're not the one in control, and you have to respect the medium and respect your time in history and respect your circumstance and respect that you're whatever age you are. When I was 15, I was so frustrated that I wasn't old enough. I wasn't older. And it was just like, just be 15 or just be 20, whatever it is, be where you are and embrace it and love what you're doing. That love and curiosity and attention is going to create the space for the kind of creativity that is required for success. Because it's true, skill is not enough. It's impressive, but it's not that impressive anymore, It's really not. It's like after a while, it all really looks the same. What is impressive is something that's brave and new and different and vulnerable, or I don't know, that just makes us think something different than we expected, that challenges us in some way. And I realize that's not how everybody wants to consume their art. I think that's totally fine. It's a totally subjective place for me. And it's true for galleries too. There are many galleries who want sexy, naked girls with fabric and a really good technique, and they can't get enough of them, and they can sell them, and that's all they want.
Right.
And there are people who will buy them until the end of time, probably. And then there's another place where it's different, where there's there's an appreciation for the creative and for the creative struggle. And if you really want to get into that real art making, you have to love it. You have to love it through thick and thin. You have to love it through the frustration. You have to love it when it's not working, when it's not doing what it's supposed to do, and kind of go easy on it. The idea that it owes you something, or it's supposed to deliver you something that's insane. I mean, it's insane in a relationship with a human, but to put that expectation on a paintbrush and a tube of paint and a piece of board, I mean, that's ludicrous, right?
Yeah.
So you have to kind of get back to, I don't know, the fundamentals of what made you want to do this to begin with, and really define them. You know, I encourage people to go through the world and clip or cut or copy or save files of whatever visual image that excites them, or piece of an image that excites them. It could be a leaf on the ground. It could be a piece of a Monet painting. It could be I don't know, some stupid magazine fashion thing. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But it could be a color. But you create a portfolio of your own aesthetic, of your own compass, you know, and you trust that compass. You trust your own aesthetic and your own sense of what you think is beautiful or interesting or important. And you stop trying to please other people's palettes and start trying to please your own, and you'll develop your own palette. And then you become the taste maker, you know, so you become the one that tells other people what's beautiful. So you know what I mean? And that's art making, really, in a nutshell, is I think honing your own palette and developing it, and then and recreating it for other people over and over and over again. Yeah. So that they catch on.
So the style thing then emerges, and if you search for it, you're gonna stop it from emerging. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. That's very well put. That's it. Yeah, you'll kill it if you try to put pressure on yourself to make work that's outside of your own knowledge, of your own experience. You're going to put yourself through so much pain and torture, and ultimately it's going to feel forced, and it's not going to quite hit the mark, you know. But if you make art that's from your experience and your own humble, I don't know, your own love in a way, your own, where you put your psychic energy, where you put your attention, that can be very powerful, and it's challenging too, because if you say that to a grad student or a college student, they get self-conscious and they think, well, God, all I really like is watching TV and playing video games or whatever. And it's like, well, you're not alone. You know, so you can talk to other people that do that, and you can find out what's underneath that and what's underneath that, and it'll bring you to your work, you know. Yeah. But you have to start with the truth.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to ask you my last question. I ask this to everybody. If there's one thing you could pass on to future generations, what would it be?
I would say the valuing of human connection. I think that's scarily disappearing as our cell phones get more and more powerful and important to us. There is a connection that we can have on a screen, but to be in somebody's presence, to touch them and to look into their eyes, that's irreplaceable. That's you can't recreate that on a screen or digitally. You can't imagine it. You can't. I don't know. It'll change you, and that's what we need to have. Is one of the most. I'll change my answer. Ready? The better answer.
Okay.
Is the better answer is empathy. It's the single most important thing that humans can do, is be empathic towards each other. And if we lose that, we'll lose everything. We'll destroy each other. So to put yourself in the presence of another human being and look into their eyes and touch them and experience what they experience as much as you can, to create empathy and create compassion, it will change you. It'll change your perception. And that's what makes us grow. And that's what makes us creative, too. So I think that is That's what I would pass on to future generations is empathy, and the ability to be empathy, to empathize. Not just my empathy, but their empathy. Right. You got it.
I got it. Yeah, very good. Okay. How can people find you?
Well, I'm online on my website, alyssamonks.com.
Okay.
And I'm on Facebook, Alyssa Monks, and I'm on Instagram, same thing, Alyssa Monks, and Twitter, same thing. And for any inquiries about purchasing paintings, you should speak directly to Forum Gallery in New York City. And they are at Forum, Forum Gallery.com.
Okay. I think all those links are on your website as well, though, aren't they? Your Instagram and Forum and everything. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so a new thing I've started doing is for if people want to ask you a question, they can ask you in the comments on underneath the podcast. So if someone asks you a question there, you'll be able to answer them?
Absolutely, yeah, I would love to.
Great. Okay, well, that's been a wonderful conversation, Alyssa. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, really, really. Your work is fantastic, and it's you're talking about being answering people. You were very accessible, because I reached out to quite a few different people, and you got back straight away, and it was very, very open. It's refreshing. So even in that small way, your thing for connection is working. So thanks for the time, and thanks for sharing all that great information.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate you listening, and all of your viewers listening, or your listeners listening, I should say. It's really been great for me too. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, bye then, Alyssa.
Bye.
I've never felt this good in my entire life. Make me some spaghetti. Yeah, we are the Argyle Pimps. So buy us a drink. We're better than you thought, but not as good as we think. We are the Argyle.